Hello, thank you guys all for coming. Welcome to our annual candidate forum. Can everybody hear me first off? Yes? All right. So we will be asking questions of our candidates, and we'll also be taking your questions. So if you do want to ask a question, the guy in the red plaid shirt is back there. He's got no cards, he's got pens, and he is happy to hand those off and then pick those up when you are done, and then he will bring them up to me. I am Adam Struck, managing editor of Harvey County Now, and I will be moderating the forum tonight. And we're hosting this with the Newton Area Chamber of Commerce, and Ready to Run also helped us out by providing this really nice venue. So if we can give everybody a round of applause. And I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming out tonight because we had a lot of events going on. It is always hard to jam in these forums with so much going on in Newton, but hey, that's a good sign because that didn't used to be the case. So anyway, without further ado, we are going to give the candidates a chance to introduce themselves. They will be given a minute 30, and they will kind of introduce themselves to you all. And then after that, we will move into questions, and they will have a minute to answer each question. So without any more blabbering, I think we're ready to start, and we'll start with you, Leroy, at the end.
Well, I'm Leroy Kane. I've lived here in Newton for 50 years. We've raised 3 of our kids here. I love this community. And, you know, I think I've seen about every up and down that you can see in a community. And the thing is, we are on the edge of something now that I think is a once-in-a-generational kind of a thing. With all the development going on, with you can just see that there is something out there that's happening here. And so one of the reasons that I'm running again, I've been a commissioner here for 12 years. In the first few years, you know, we didn't have a whole lot going on. But as everybody's taxes goes up, as inflation is hitting everybody, the quickest way to take the pressure off of the homeowners is to get more commercial and industrial companies to move in and to expand because they get taxed at the 25% tax rate instead of the 11.5% for the homeowner. So that's what we want to do, is expand that tax base, and we are on the run with that program right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, Leroy. Ron.
Oh, you can't.
All
I
right.
can see him. Sorry about that.
Can I call my
Got it
back?
now. I'll flip it back. Yeah, he did it perfect. So.
Hello, my name is Rod Cry, and first I want to shout out to my wife. She's sitting back there. A lot of people don't bump into her very much because she is home all the time. So anyway, Dan and I have been married almost 49 years. We've got 3 children, and I'm like Leroy. I just love Newton too, and I really have enjoyed serving these last 8 years the city of Newton as a commissioner and as a mayor. I have a very diverse background. I'm a retired CPA. I have experience with city audits and city budgets. I've been involved in banking over the years, part of a group in Ulysses that owned a bank. I was a bank president for a few years. I've done quite a few startup companies also, so I've got business experience there. I graduated from Southwestern College in 1977. I was on their board for 12 years, and I'm a member of their Business Hall of Fame, which is kind of, I don't know how that happened, but it did happen. So I really would like to serve another 4 years, and we've had a lot of great things happen. We feel like we've moved forward, changing the culture of the community a little bit so that it's easier to attract business, and I hope that you'll allow me to serve another 4 years.
Thank you. Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason Miller. I moved to Newton in 2001 when I was 21, and by that point I had moved about 25 times. My family moved a lot. Part of what I like about Newton is that this is a place where I now know that I belong. I didn't grow up here, but I really like Newton, and I've chosen to be here with my wife. I love local history, I love traditions and stories, and I also like to dream big and think outside the box. I believe that we can learn from our past, the past of Newton, the history of Newton, and that we can build for the future that we want to see. I think the city's moving in good directions, and some of you may have read this book over the last year or two. He talks about community building as a race, a relay race that never ends. I'm coming here as the only person who hasn't served on the city commission. I would like to work hard, show up, help out, and carry the baton for a little while. You can check out my website, my palm cards. I can answer any questions. I do a lot of different things. I do construction. I work with sex abuse survivors in the Mennonite Church. I dabble in a lot of things, and I try to leave things better than I find them. So that would be my approach to City Commission.
Thank you. Melanie?
I'm Melanie Watson. I currently serve on the commission. Right now, I've been there for a couple of years now, almost. So I'm still learning. It's definitely been a learning curve that I have embraced and enjoy working with my fellow commissioners and also the city staff. My background is social work. I do have a bachelor's degree from Wichita State in social work. Most of my experience has been with 25 years of the child welfare system, so I know that system very well. And I was born and raised here. I raised my family here as well. So I'm in the process right now of getting my own business started here, case management business, to help with the IDD population. But I've just enjoyed these last few years, and I would like to continue to learn and grow. I've learned so much from the other commissioners already, and I just would like to continue to grow and learn from them. So I'm a little bit maybe more prepared this time than I was before, hopefully. So anyway, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll open up with an easy one here. Increased cost of living, both with property taxes and utility increases, regularly get noted by residents as problems with the city. Do you agree this is true? If so, how would you address such increases? If you disagree, explain why. I think we'll start with Rod.
What was the front part?
Increased cost of living, both with property tax rates or property taxes and utility increases, regularly get noted by residents as problems with the city. Do you agree that's true? If so, how would you address such increases? If you disagree, explain why.
Well, it's true, so I would have to agree with that. And I don't think there's a commissioner that feels like that our property taxes or even our water rates are where we want them to be. But the unfortunate thing about becoming an elected official is when you take office, you don't get to go back and change things, and you have to start at wherever you're at and then kind of move forward. So you're kind of locked into where you're at, but we've concentrated on the long range plan where we are fixing things over the long haul, and there are really no short-term solutions. But you can start things in a direction where it will eventually benefit people in a large way at some point in time.
Thank you. Jason.
I agree that rising costs are a problem. I would say I don't think that's unique to Newton. That's a national problem. And as maybe the person who could come here and say, I've got a plan to fix it, I will say, I don't have a plan to fix it. But I do want to know, is it possible? So I've been talking to people, looking at statewide trends. I just don't think it's realistic. We're not gonna lower our water bills. We're not gonna lower our property taxes. In the last 20 years, I found 2 examples in the state where cities lowered their property taxes by 1/2 of 1 mil, one time in 20 years. One of my friends is Carolyn McGann, our former senator, and I said, well, Carolyn, tell me, is it realistic to say that we could lower property taxes? In your long history with Sedgwick County, with the state, and she said, no, realistically, it's not. So that's not our answer. I think our answer is what these guys have said. Bring in more money so that we're not all paying for it. And there's some really great things happening, and I'd like to help keep working to bring in some more businesses and expand the tax base.
Thank you. Melanie?
I do agree with the costs of property taxes and utilities, things like that, have risen, and they do probably cause some strain on some families in our community, unfortunately. So I'm not sure that I see in the near future where we would be able to lower those property taxes. At this point, we are kind of depending on that growth development that's going on to kind of help us with that, but that is going to take time. So I'm not seeing that in the real near future, but it is coming. Now, what I would like to do until we get there is maybe, I know we've kind of had a little discussion about maybe an intangible tax type of approach. There's just been a small discussion about that, but I'm hoping that we will continue to have that discussion and see if maybe that's a possibility for us until we can get to a point where we can lower those costs for people.
Thank you. Leroy?
I absolutely agree that they are too high, and it's a strain and a burden for all of us homeowners. And if you think about it, so property taxes go up because the property value goes up, and the values of all of our property on an average have gone up about 15 to 17% here in the last 2 years. So naturally your taxes follow that trend. Well, when you want to sell your house, you want to sell it at a higher dollar amount, and so that's what happens. Unfortunately, those of us who don't want to sell, our taxes still keep going up. And I think that one of the keys is what I said previously, is that, you know, I own Kane Painting Company, so we're in the construction industry and we're in the development world, and so I am working really hard. I know Rod is in the same industry in a different sector, of bringing new companies, new industries, or having our existing companies expand, because that is the quickest way to broaden that tax base from the commercial side, not the residential side, so that we get that increase, that 25% tax rate instead of the 11 on all of us homeowners. And that's the quickest way we're going to get there to give us softer pressure on us homeowners. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving right along. A large part of Newton's downtown is occupied by the long-for-sale Newton Train Depot, as well as the soon-to-be torn-down Old Dillon's building. What do you think the city's role should be regarding both properties, and what do you think the best use of the properties would be? Jason.
This is the question I was waiting for. This is one of the big reasons I want to run. I love what is possible in downtown Newton with the opening up of the Dillon's property. That building was built in 1955. It's been 70 years since something new happened there. And there was a really good group that put together the downtown master plan back 15 years ago or more. I think it's a great plan. It was really smart people who put that together. That involves the south side of the tracks. Part of what I talk about when on my website is building for community. I want to build something or have something built that brings the community together. It isn't about tourism. It isn't about some luxury sort of high level thing. That can be our town square. and the depot and that bridging the north and south, that could really revitalize our downtown.
Thank you. Melanie?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Maybe I should write some shorter preambles. I apologize. A large part of Newton's downtown is occupied by the long-for-sale Newton Depot, as well as the soon-to-be torn-down Old Dillon's building. What do you think the city's role should be regarding both properties, and what do you think the best use of these properties would be?
As far as the depot goes, I don't know that the city should have a lot to do with that. Especially, after it sells, I think that would fall on whoever purchases the building. But I think a good use of that building would, it needs some work. So there'd have to be someone that was willing to make those changes, but I think that there's it's a piece of our history. We should try to preserve it as much as we can. But I think a good office space would be great for those things, type of offices there. Maybe a great opportunity for someone to put an office there. I'm trying to think what else. The other question was about the downtown, South Dillon's.
Old Dillon's.
Yes. That it's a fairly old building. It does need to be redone. I'm really not sure, to be honest, what would be the best approach there, solution for that piece of property. So I really not sure. Maybe like something like what Jason said, a little like strip mall or something like that might be a good opportunity.
Thank you. Leroy?
So it's up to us 5 commissioners to be the visionaries, to look ahead 3, 5, and 10 years down the road to see what we want our city to look like. And we want a thriving downtown. So you can visualize as big as the creativity in our mind, right? So one of the visions I have is I think the city should help facilitate. We don't want to buy it and own it and do that, but we need to control or facilitate maybe a public-private development where we use the old South Dillon's, or we use a depot. Well, think about this. What if you had a walkway up and over the tracks? If we had a destination downtown, whether it's a brewery, whether it's a venue where we have, concerts or music festivals, whether there's a restaurant, whether there's an open farmer's art market down there, and in the old depot, whether there's a museum, brewery, whatever, there's a whole bunch of things that we can visualize to make that a destination so that people will drive from all over the region to come down there and look at that. We want it to be one of those conversation pieces.
Thank you. Rod?
And I'll build on that a little bit. I think one of the things that elected officials, they worry so much about, and you should worry about what you spend, but there's times where you have to look at things as an investment. I can't ever support the city owning that and trying to operate it, because it is going to be a money pit. But we might have to help in some way with a developer to get him to come in and do that project. I don't know what that help would be, but I think it's important too we look at the revenue side of the deal. If you do have a brewery go in there, they'll be collecting sales tax and liquor tax, and I think in every instance that we look at for potential public-private partnerships, I think we have to look at what the potential revenue is too, so we can see if we do make an investment in something that makes the downtown more viable, that we know how long it's going to take to get a return on that investment. So,
Thank you. Take an audience question. Talking about spending. What are you going to do to ensure that our tax dollars are being spent wisely? Melody.
That is a very good question. I tend to think of the underdogs when we make decisions. I tend to think how this is going to affect our more vulnerable people, our elderly, our single parents, our single families that are struggling financially. I tend to think about how will this affect them, and I will continue to do that as well. So I kind of think that other commissioners kind of appreciate that I bring that to the table. At least I hope so. But anyway, yes, I would continue to look out for the people who our decisions are going to affect.
Thank you. Leroy.
Yeah, so that's one of those things, every time the budget season comes around, we have to look very, very closely. So we have to look at, first of all, our basic services of the city. 70% of it is fire, EMS, and police, and streets, and then all of the other departments that we have. And so, and I don't know, for those of you that follow our budget season, we do a lot of hard work. We push back on staff. We say, okay, now you go back and you check out, X, Y, and Z, and come back to us. Let's see if we can cut. Let's see if there's any way that we can make this more efficient. And we work really hard, because look, all 5 of us pay the same taxes every other homeowner does. We don't like to pay it any more than anybody else. And so I think we have really, especially in the last couple of years, we have worked really hard on holding staff accountable, and they have done a pretty good job of coming back with options until it comes to the point, okay, we're going to have to cut services. What do you want to cut? And so we just need to keep working that prudently on that issue.
Thank you. Rod.
The system is set up so that there are checks and balances, and I don't do it so much anymore because I understand the process, but I used to actually go down and dig through things and see if there was anything that I thought they might be able to cut that they hadn't looked at, and we really do pretty much run on a bare bones budget. That you can always go in and find something you want to cut. What one person might think is necessary, another person might not think is necessary. But it is a good process, and we do have good staff, and there's a great amount of trust between us and them, and there's a lot of money that flows through a city budget, but there really isn't anything in there that isn't absolutely necessary.
Thank you. Jason.
Earlier this year, I went through the Ready to Run program to learn more about the city, and then I've been attending commission meetings and agenda reviews and watching, learning. And I think the city has a really good team in place, and we have some really smart commissioners who are frugal and know their numbers. The thing that I would say to community members is, if you think you have good ideas, you need to come and show up at the appropriate time in the process when that's being discussed. Don't wait till the very end and then come in and complain and expect something to change. Because it's a long budget process with lots of different pieces, and you can give insight, but you got to come at the right time. It's I like really careful, logical processes, and that's how the city is run, with a lot of care and a lot of checks and balances, and they're just, things are expensive. That's the way it is, but we do need to always keep looking for ways to save money.
Thank you. Here's another audience question here. We often hear how people on a fixed income have difficulty paying for property tax increases. Halstead offers them their senior citizens a discount on their trash service. It is about 15%. Would you consider offering Newton senior citizens a similar discount? Leroy. Or wait, who did I start with? I lost track, guys. I'm sorry.
It's Leroy.
Okay, perfect. You looked quizzical.
I think that's an interesting idea. I would certainly consider it, and I know what we would do is we would say, okay, if we'd first have to get the numbers, right? How many senior citizens, and nobody raised their hand here tonight to admit you're a senior citizen, but we would have to do the numbers on how many and what that number would be. Anybody over 65 or whatever it is, and see how many households, how many rooftops that is, and then what that dollar amount is if we gave them a 10 or 15% discount. And then we'd have to say, okay, is there somewhere else where we can cut that amount to make up for that, to give them some relief? I mean, I think it's a fabulous idea, but again, the numbers will tell the tale. So that's it.
Thank you. Rob.
Leroy, I think you and me and Kathy would have a conflict of interest. How sad is that? Anyway, yeah, of course. Just from personal experience, I know how tough it is when you're a senior. When my father died, my mother had to live on one set of Social Security instead of two, so it literally squeezed her out of the house because that happened, and she had to move into rent subsidized deals. So I think it's important that seniors do get a break because once you're not in the workforce anymore, your wages don't go up like inflation does, and heaven forbid you lose one set of income, and that could be totally devastating. So I certainly would look at it, but it does fit into an entire budget where if you take something away here, you got to figure out where to add it somewhere else, or if you add something here, you got to take it away from something else. So it would become part of the process, and I think we should look at it.
Thank you. Jason.
I've spent last few months just trying to figure out what is possible within a city, what is actually possible. And there are things that you see in other states, examples like this, and some of them just aren't possible in Kansas because of state law. But I found some interesting ideas that other cities try. There are things that we can try. Abatements that can be, like I was looking at sidewalks, and there are a couple cities in Newton that do I forget what the word is, but you basically abate you can charge your sidewalk, you can repair your sidewalks, put it as an abatement, and then indefinitely, so you can't technically pay for somebody's sidewalk in Kansas. But there are ways like this, creative ways to find ways for specific people to try to help them out.
Thank you. Melanie.
I would definitely entertain that idea. We could definitely have a discussion about that. I think that the seniors do suffer or struggle probably with paying their utilities. They don't get raises like the rest of us do. So they probably do struggle with that. So maybe we can look at an age group, or we can look at an income bracket that would kind of narrow that down to who would receive that kind of percentage off their water utilities.
Thank you. Recently, Newton has been working on a new strategic plan, Newton Next. As part of this planning, groups were asked to come together, brainstorm about how they would measure success for the city of Newton. One measurement of success was an increase in affordable housing to draw more people to the city. How do you define affordable housing, and do you have specific actions you take to increase such housing, or would like to see the city take? Rob?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Affordable housing it's a big deal. It doesn't matter where you go in the city world, everybody's talking about it. It used to be you could get into a starter home for a reasonable amount of money, whatever reasonable is. But I don't know how many contractors contractors we've talked to. We've got lots of rooftops going up right now that are all a result of some of the industrial activity that's going on and new families that might be moving in. But we're exploring grants, we're exploring the possibility of rebating taxes for a period of time. We're looking at all kinds of stuff to see if there isn't a way that we can stimulate the building of affordable housing. But it's a tough nut, and there's no simple solution to it, but we're talking to everybody we can talk to try to figure out a way to make that happen.
Okay. Jason?
I think you asked about affordable housing. I think there is a definition of approximately 30% of your income spent on housing. I have a couple thoughts. I'll try to make them make sense. One really good way to have more affordable housing, personally, is to live in a smaller house. We live in a very small house, and our property taxes are quite low, and it's enjoyable. I would love to see more small houses built, and I have a background in construction. I like designing spaces and small houses. The city, as far as the city's role, I'm not sure what that is, although I've looked at the regulations have all been updated to allow for accessory dwelling units, and that's something I think is a really cool idea. If we can figure out a way to make it work that they can be built, if you have a senior in a home and they're and they're getting priced out, if they build an accessory dwelling unit and can rent that out to a younger person, we can start to really stack things if we can get creative and figure out how to do it.
Thank you. Melanie?
I do believe we've had some discussion about affordable housing and what that might look like. And it's kind of hard to vision when you don't know really what that entails, what that looks like. So I think a study would probably be a really good place to start and kind of find out like where our medium is there, and like what would be affordable for new residents. So I think that a study would be a really good place to start.
Thank you. Leroy?
Well, I'll come at it from another angle, so I'll come at it from the builder's angle. If you talk to 3 or 4 different builders, they're gonna say the minimum priced house that they can build and make any money, otherwise they're not gonna build it. I mean, it's a for-profit industry, right? Is $225,000 to $250,000. And that's not what lots of people would call affordable, right? What people would call affordable is about half of that, okay? So that's why you see so many duplexes and smaller units, multiple units going up, because the builder can build that on scale, right close together in an efficient style, and they can somehow make that work. So I think as far as the city's perspective, we need to look at, and when we're talking about that again, of some incentives, of some maybe 5-year tax rebates, or some sort of pay their closing costs, give them a $5,000 grant. But again, if we had a pool of money to do that with, let's say we had $150,000 to work with there, well then okay, where's that $150,000 going to come from somewhere else in the budget? But that's a discussion we need to have, because that is a big issue for lots of people.
Thank you. Next question. Serving on the City Commission requires compromises in terms of funding priorities. Explain what your most important priority will be as a City Commissioner and what actions will be necessary to accomplish that priority. Jason? Yes.
What is the first part related to the second part?
Serving on the City Commission requires compromises in terms of funding priorities. We can't fund everything. Explain what your most important priority would be if elected as a City Commissioner and what action you would take to accomplish that priority. So what's most important to you?
Specifically funding related?
Sure.
Sorry. My priority is to see that something really great gets built south of the tracks and with the depot. Not that the city builds it, not that the city owns it, necessarily runs it, but as the city currently owns the south part, there's a lot of control and some influence on what can happen. That doesn't, funding-wise, that doesn't have to be a major funding struggle if it can be an investment and it's a safe investment. There is money that can be put into these things, and it'll pay off quite well if we do it well. But it needs to be done carefully and following the plan and the community input.
Thank you. Melanie.
Can you repeat that?
I absolutely can. What is your most important priority as a city commission candidate, and what actions will you take to accomplish that priority?
For me, one of my priorities would be the more setting up some kind of a social fund to help our citizens that need help. We have citizens in our community that are hurting financially and are struggling day to day even to eat. And so I think that if, as a city, we need to be able to give back to our citizens and maybe provide us some kind of a social fund to help some of our resources that assist those folks thrive. Because I think that if those systems are not thriving, our community will struggle to thrive as well.
Thank you. Leroy.
Well, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but I think it is time, because of the development that's going on in various parts of the city, that we are reaching critical mass where we need to keep the pedal to the metal to bring the new industry in, to expand existing industry, that's going to require us as the city to consider the roads, the sewer, the water, and how to get to those developments. So there's going to be some upfront costs, but at some point, every one of those pieces of real estate is going to come on the tax rolls. And that's when we're going to get the reward for this kind of work. I'm telling you, this is a once-in-a-generation thing that's going on here in Newton, and we need to see this thing through so that we can all enjoy, because amenities will follow that. Once we grow that commercial tax base, the amenities will follow for our citizens.
Thank you. Rod.
I think it's important that we really honor our staff, especially management level staff. We've got a lot of really good employees, and if you think about it, they're a part of creating a culture from which the industrial development thrived. They're in charge of working with the people that are struggling right now. They get to see some of that firsthand, and making sure that we do what we have to do to keep competent, caring, and we have staff that really cares. But we need to make sure that we do what we can to make sure we don't screw something up to the point to where we start losing staff. I think that's very important.
Okay. Thank you. Here's an audience question. There are a lot of questions about new companies and economic development. How do we ensure that existing companies like the Cabinet Factory stay here in the community? I think we start with Melanie.
We are talking about currently, what are here currently?
Yeah, how do we support existing companies and ensure people keep these companies in the community?
Well, that's a good one too. I guess that there could be some incentive there to utilize if the company is struggling and we're aware of it. I think that we would need to be aware of something like that fairly early on and not have the company wait till the last minute to let us know that they're struggling. But maybe to offer some kind of incentive to them to stay open and keep jobs available.
Okay, thank you. Leroy?
Yeah, so some of that starts with Beth Shelton and Jennifer at the Harvey County Economic Development Council. You know, Jennifer goes out and does retention visits to all of our existing industry. And then if there is an issue, then she'll bring it to all the various groups around town, including the city commission. And if there's anything that we can do to help them, because I'm a firm believer, I would much rather help our existing businesses than to bring in a brand new company. Because every new job that the existing business who is loyal to this company, they're already here, they've been here for however many years, those are the ones we want to really honor first. And so I think that's really important. So as soon as we get the word that there might be a struggle, then we can have the conversation, is there any way that we can help them monetarily?
Thank you. Rod?
We do those retention visits, and amazingly, with the cabinet company that came out and announced that they were moving, we'd done one within 2 weeks of when they left, and them leaving Newton was actually a surprise to the staff at the cabinet company here. So there's going to be surprises. It's how you react to those surprises, and that's where we're really good too. I mean, after that, we immediately set up a job fair, and there was like 400 employees that had to be placed, and literally within 2 weeks, almost every one of those people that didn't want to just stay home and collect unemployment, they had them another job. Most of them right here in Harvey County. So we do a lot more than just the average citizen knows, and we do really a good job with retention through Harvey County Economic Development.
Thank you. Jason?
I agree with what, or not that it's up to, not that I actually have experience, but what they're saying is makes sense to me. A piece that so I think it's important for the community to know that there are existing, you don't just sit around and just let it happen. There are existing structures in place to keep these businesses. Another piece from my personal experience, I grew up in northern Indiana in the RV capital of the world. And it was just endless boom and bust cycles. That's just the nature of those businesses. And then all of the businesses around it were the same way. I'm sure there are reasons to complain about any business that we might bring in. But looking at the businesses that are going to be most likely to stay and be stable and not have these fluctuations and come and go. In Kansas, I think a roofing company is a pretty stable business. Probably going to stay in business. Having some of those really core solid businesses that aren't going to have the ups and downs is going to be a way to have retention.
Thank you. Another audience question. Newton has a double-edged sword. Many nonprofit property owners. What creative ways can these organizations help us with the tax base? Leroy.
That has been a conundrum for many years. You know, we've talked about a number of different ways of, because they don't pay the property tax, you know, is there a way that we can maybe increase their water bill or their trash bill? And we always come back to, well, no, we can't do that because that's not fair to the rest of the citizens. And so we've had this discussion, I don't know how many times over the years, because there's about 32% of the county is nonprofit. And that includes a lot of the long-term care facilities and a variety of others. And they all have very important roles in our community. So it's not that we want to pick on them, but there is a discrepancy and a certain unfairness to them not paying the property tax and all of us homeowners having to pay the property tax. So that's something I think we will have continued discussions on.
Thank you. Rod.
Being a number nerd, you know, I play with numbers all the time, and it's interesting, if you look at the growth that's getting ready to happen, you know, the not-for-profits usually hover around 30% of our tax base, and they don't pay taxes, and a lot of people don't know that, but that does put the burden on residential, industrial, and commercial properties. But with if we could do what we did in the last 2 years, it wouldn't be too long before proportionally they would be about the same proportion to people that do pay taxes by just growing our assessed valuation. So that's going to solve a lot of problems if we can just keep up with the industrial development that's currently happening right now.
Thank you. Jason?
I think a couple points that I think are important to realize. There is that double-edged sword. The fact that they're nonprofits and not paying property taxes, when we talk about seniors getting priced out for property taxes, those are options where they can live there and not be not have the problems with property taxes going up. That's an advantage of them. There are options in other ways of having in lieu of funds where they can pay things. I'm guessing there wouldn't be anything we would come up with that they would be required to pay that wouldn't then become a complaint. So switching to a different idea, I have noticed in the last month or two new wealth management companies, at least 2 in town. And so I was wondering, how many are there in Newton if you drive north to south? There are 10 or 12. I don't think it's a lack of money. I think if we have good places for people to donate money, then they want to invest in the community, there might be a way to.
Thank you. Sorry. Melanie?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure, I can do that. Let me, I was ready moving on to the next question, so let me dig out here. Newton has a double-edged sword, many nonprofit property owners. What creative way can these organizations help with the tax base?
That, I do think they should actually help. What that would look like, I don't know. I'm not sure what the solution would be for that. Unfortunately, I think that is definitely a discussion that we would definitely need to have to kind of explore what options we do have to, we don't want to run them into the ground, but also make sure that they kind of are paying their share, per se. So I'm not sure what the solution would look like, but I do agree that they probably should be paying something extra.
Okay, thank you. Now, then there's a lot of good questions in here, and we're not going to get through all of them, so I would encourage you guys, if you do have questions for your city commissioners or city commission candidates, you can talk to them after they're done here, you can go to the meeting, you can shoot them an email, pretty accessible, so I am sorry if I don't get to quite all of these. Good questions tonight. I did want to ask this one because I'm curious about it as well. Could you explain an intangible tax? What are the reasons you'd support this or not support this sort of revenue? Ron?
Well, an intangible tax, there's not a whole lot of communities that have them. I think there's one in
North Newton.
Yeah, and it's a tax on your interest and dividends, and it's collected by the state of Kansas and then redistributed to your community. But literally, you take your Schedule B on your Form 1040, and a community that implements that tax. It's just a percentage, and it can be 2%, 1%. I don't know what North Newton's is, but it's a tax on people that have interest and dividend income. And yeah, I would take a hard look at it.
Okay. Jason?
I'm interested in any creative idea that would be broadly supported. So I would want to hear from community members, and if there's uproar, I don't think that's a great way to go. I'm more interested in building on the momentum that we have, showing people that things are happening, and providing opportunities for people to invest in the community. If tax isn't gonna be palatable to the broader public.
Thank you. Melanie?
When I think of an intangible tax, I think of property taxes and maybe something like, maybe if your home is worth $200,000 or less, there you may pay less taxes, or maybe not be affected as much by an increase as some others whose home value is higher. When I think of an intangible tax for Newton, I think of it as a short-term kind of solution. Like I said, until we get this development going and we start seeing the effects of that financially, then maybe we can veer away from that at some point.
Thank you. Leroy?
I'd certainly be open to that discussion. You know, the tax on your interest and dividends, then those people who have those funds would say, well, you're just picking on us just because we invested our money and now we have a little bit. However, if we have a discussion, if there is a particular need, I would not be interested in having that conversation if it's just to put those funds into the general fund and to go for whatever there is. But if there is a specific need that we have in the community, a hardship need or whatever that is, that those funds that we could explain to the people who have these funds that, hey, this is what it's going for, I would be interested in that conversation.
Thank you. Okay, I think if we're speedy, we can get through one more question, then do some closing statements. I'm going to ask this, I asked this at most of them. What's one thing we've not talked about tonight that you would have liked to discuss?
Is that a trick question?
No. Wait, no, it's Jason. Sorry.
I don't have a good answer. Another thing that I'm interested in is looking at the amenities. We talked about new amenities, but looking at the amenities we have and optimizing them, improving them. The old saying that what the bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. We have these things. We have great things. I lived next to Themian Park for 10 years, and I would love to see Themian Park improved. I think we have spaces and we have resources. Those, of course, cost money, but and with the plan and with some community investment, we can really work on the bike path. I'm really excited about the bike path extension and some of those pieces. I'd like to keep working on some of those.
Okay, thank you. Melanie?
I'm also not sure really what else we could have talked about differently today. I think I pretty much covered what I would have wanted to ask. But I do agree, maybe some more discussion about some amenities in our community. We do need more things, entertainment type things here, for sure. So I do think that that's something we should explore.
Thank you. Leroy?
Well, that bike path extension out to the golf course, I think is going to be a really neat development once it's finished and we find a way to go under BNSF. As you know, BNSF thinks they're their own country and can call their own rules. But we'll figure out a way to do that since we've been have received or going to receive the grant funding for that from the state. The other thing that we haven't talked about is, Ember Hope out here, they're building a really neat development there of I don't know what it is, 100 to 120 housing units that just isn't talked about very much, but I think that's going to be a valuable addition to the community.
Thank you. Rob?
I just want to talk a little bit about the value of public-private partnerships. I see Ann Adrian sitting out there who headed up the library fundraising effort. There are a lot of things that have happened in the last 2 or 3 years that couldn't happen, 4 or 5 years, I guess, it couldn't happen without someone coming forward and saying, hey, if you guys can pay for part of this, we'll figure out a way to pay for the rest of it. And And that has worked so well. You know, it worked with the library. It's worked with a lot of other stuff too. So I would say thank you, public, for being involved in some of the successful things that has happened at the city level.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to closing statements, and since we went from right to left the last go, if we could start at Melanie and go from left to right this go. That way it's fair for everybody.
We don't have to be fair right now. I'll just make mine real short and brief here. I would love to stay on this commission. Like I said, I've learned a lot from the other commissioners. I'm still learning. These guys are so knowledgeable about development and construction, infrastructures, and things like that. I can't possibly compete with that by all means, but I definitely have learned a lot and would like to continue to learn from that, about that. So I would love to continue to stay your commissioner, and I will continue to look out for all the underdogs.
Thank you. Jason?
I like to take on big challenges, and I like to learn new things. It's been a lot of fun to learn about the city. A lot of the challenges that I have taken on, some of the challenges I've taken on have been really difficult. I was thinking, just coming to this space, that next week will be the eight-year anniversary of our son's death by suicide. When he was 21, he died, and very shortly after that, we came into this space right here. Well, first Adam wrote a story about it. We opened up, talked about it with the community. We found a lot of support. We came to Talk 20, is that what it's called? We did a Talk 20 session. And I think that's a big reason why I now feel like I belong in the community, because we were really vulnerable and we went through a really rough time, and the community supported us. And I'm now interested in putting more of my time and effort into things that I've taken on a lot of hard things, and it wears you down to always work on really hard stuff like sex abuse and foster kids. And I really get excited about what can we build. I have two little nieces growing up in the school system in Newton. What can we build so that in 25 years they choose to come back here?
Thank you.
That's what I'm interested in.
Rod?
Well, my business career and my desire to serve put me in a position to where I feel like I've been pretty effective with some of the economic development things I participated in. I do have 40-some years of experience, both developing projects and working with developers that develop their own projects. And I just have this desire to serve that my wife wishes would go away. So, because I'm involved in a lot of stuff, but I really do enjoy doing things that benefit the community. My connectivity has put us in places where we might not have been able to go had that not have happened. And I just love working with the current commissioners and the city staff, and really want 4 more years so we can see see this thing through. If you look back 8 years, we started off with a plan. We asked the community, what do you want? And they said what they wanted, and we've accomplished almost all of that. And we're in the process of asking what they want again, so I would like to plug in and see what happens.
Thank you. Leroy?
Yeah, so if a lot of you can think back to 2011 when we did Re-Newton, and that was the community coming together and visionarying, what do we want the community to look like in 10 or 15 years from now? Well, if you think about it, we've accomplished 70 or 80% of those things that was on that list. From the pool upgrade, to a new YMCA, to the bike path up and down Sand Creek, to new baseball diamonds out at Centennial Park. And so now, what's happening now is we're doing the new survey, which is the Newton Next. And I'm really excited to see what the community wants for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And I want 4 more years to see the first 4 years of that plan coming to fruition. Because already we have a full plate here of GAF, Hillsborough Industries is coming in, Millennial, they expanded, Full Vision, we've got the new People's State Bank and Trust, we've got McDonald's, and we have probably 200 to 250 new rooftops going on. I wish about half of those, though, were that affordable range, right? We're in the, but they are what they are, and so I want to thank all of you for coming out here tonight. That just means you care about this community. You want to know that and be assured that you have good leadership, and so you're part of what we do. You direct us. We want to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you guys. Anyway, there you are, Ron.
Thank you, Ed. I think probably a lot of people in here tonight, when they saw that Ready to Run was one of the sponsors for this, wondered, what the heck's Ready to Run? Well, Ready to Run is an organization that we just put together about a year ago. That's why a lot of people have never heard of it. But our mission fits right in with what's happening tonight. The mission for Ready to Run is provide a knowledge base for citizens interested in running for public office, participating in appointing committees, and in general, obtaining an understanding of public office. That's its purpose. A lot of people you've heard up here tonight talk about it's a learning curve. Any information that we can provide individuals to entice them to become involved, become good public offices, servants, that's what we're after. The purpose is to provide people with information about how public government at the local level works. It's not about how to run a campaign. We're not a political partisan at all. There's no political affiliation whatsoever. It's for education. And it is a collaboration. There's 5 school districts in the county. Anybody that's interested in serving in a school district outside of 379, city commission outside of the city of Newton. It's to the benefit for people that are wanting to learn about all these different entities, how mill levies work, how budgets are put together. That's its purpose. So we're starting our 2nd class. The first date will be in January. We do have a Facebook page and some information will come out. We try to get about 15 people into class. Jason Miller referenced it. He went through some of the class. I see several attendees to our original class that are here tonight. But we'll be starting that up in January. We'll be getting information out. If you're interested, you can apply. If you think there is someone that should serve, you can nominate them. We'll be going through that process too. So that's what Ready to Run is. We're glad to participate tonight. We've got a great group of candidates. Looks like they're ready to go.
We'll just move into introductions. So we will start with Bob or Robert. Do you prefer Robert or Bob? What do you prefer?
You gotta wait on me.
I usually go by Bob.
Okay, can I call you Bob? Okay, we're gonna start out with Bob Diepenbrock, and you have a minute and a half to introduce yourself, then we'll work our way down the line. So, take it away.
Apparently it's working. Well, I've been in Newton about 5 years, a little bit over 5 years, moved to Newton. had a daughter that had moved here a little bit earlier than that, and then another daughter has since moved to Newton. It's a great community for us, and part of what I would probably want to say in my introduction is why am I interested in doing schools, continuing to do schools, I guess. I have over 40 years, still active in schools in a lot of ways, but I have over 40 years at this point as an educational administrator in different ways, special education, superintendent of schools, principal. And all administrators start out as teachers. So I started out doing teaching, and I'm continuing to do teaching in a way as I work with the medical schools in Wichita right now as a standardized patient. So I enjoy kids. That's why I want to do education. I think with my unique experience of over 40 years, I feel like I have a lot to offer this community. I have a lot of experience in so many different ways that I want to give back. And we moved here 5 years, my wife and I. We've loved the community, so that's why I'm here as a candidate.
Thank you. Before you start, Andy, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. Who needed the waters?
I thought I needed them, but then I think.
Sorry, guys. Go ahead, Andy.
Hello, I'm Andy Ortiz. I co-founder of Axon Displays, Axon Partners really, and there's several little companies under that, and I really enjoy what I get to do for a living. I do a lot of different things. I'm an entrepreneur. I've helped with lots of startups in the community, and that's where my passion is building businesses and structures and systems and partnering with people and chasing the American dream, right? And I've had a great time. I've been here since 1998. Newton's been very good to me. I came from the south side of San Antonio, where you would call it the ghetto, right? And coming here, this was a culture shock for me when I first got here. But I was welcomed in by a bunch of great Mennonites there at Bethel College and kind of walked me along my path. And I'm so grateful, and I feel a responsibility to get back to this community because this community has raised me in my adult life. I have now been here longer than I was in San Antonio growing up, and I really enjoy this place. As I look through the crowd tonight, I see one person in particular who asked a hard question at a forum quite some time ago. And that question was, when you have to make the hard decisions, will you be able to make them? And I think I've proven to do that. And it hasn't been fun all the time. But we've done some good things for the district moving forward, and I'm looking forward to hopefully serving another 4 years to finish out a vision that I have.
Thank you. Heidi.
Thank you. Good afternoon, or good evening, I guess it is already. Happy to be here. So happy to see all of you here tonight too. My name is Heidi Hoskinson. I am excited to be running for school board. I am a 5-year resident of Newton, Kansas. Came from Oklahoma, but before that I was at Friends University in Wichita and spent 10 years there. So long history here in the South Central Kansas area. I really love it here. Professionally, I've been in higher education for the last 31 years in 4 executive leadership positions, served for vice presidencies. I am the vice president right now at Bethel College, our hometown college. We're proud to have Andy as an alum. But super excited about student success, learning, teaching. Really wanted to give back, as some others have said, to educational experiences in the community. I think we have a lot to offer here in Newton. I'm really excited about the connection between USD 373 and post-secondary educational opportunities. Not every community has the depth and breadth of wealth of opportunities for their students that we have in Newton. I really want to accentuate that and celebrate that, and really want to be a part of ensuring that students are successful and have a positive educational environment.
Thank you. Clint.
Yeah, hi, my name is Clint, and I want to do what Rod did. I want to introduce my wife in the back. He introduced his wife. My wife is Rebecca. Many of you know her, but probably more of you know me, so it's always fun to introduce her. She's the one that every night says, "Do you have to do this?" And I served on the city commission. Probably most of you know me from either the city commission or my time working here in the community and church. So we came to Newton 8 years ago. It was 2017, August of that year. We've loved Newton. I always tell people that honestly, in my career, I could probably live anywhere that I want to, and we choose Newton over and over again. We've had opportunities to go elsewhere. We choose to stay here. I'm running for the school board in hopes of just kind of bringing a fresh perspective and a fresh vision. I think our school district needs it right now. If you were here for the candidate forum, you heard of so many good things happening there in the city. I think the school has some catching up to do with the city to stay where it needs to, and even honestly to improve. We have 4 boys. All of them have been a part of the Newton school system. I guess 3 of them have graduated from there. I have a sophomore this year, but we've had Newton Bible School experience and public school experience. Our 2 oldest boys both have autism, so they went to the special ed program. And so just kind of a wide experience in the Newton School District, but looking forward to being one of your next school board members.
Thank you. Rachel.
Hi, my name is Rachel McDaniel, and I'm a 5th generation Kansan, but pretty new to the Newton area. I moved here with my husband who grew up in this area, and a big part of it was because of how positively he spoke about Newton, and that is everything I've received moving here. It has been a joy, and I don't plan to go anywhere else. Just a little bit about my professional background. I am trained in clinical social work and also mediation, and I currently practice psychotherapy. I started that out with littles. I worked with as young as 2 years old on attachment therapies and have transitioned into more complex trauma with adults and teenagers at this point in my career. A big part of why I want to work for the school board is just because community service is so important to me. So important that that's basically what my degree is how to run communities well. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Stephen.
Hi, my name is Stephen Teason. I was born in Newton. My parents were born in Newton. I graduated in 2001. My parents graduated from Newton. I graduated from Newton as well. My kids it's my intent for them to graduate from Newton. I have 4 children. One of them's at the high school, one's at Chisholm, and one is at Northridge right now. My daughter has Down syndrome, so I do have a connection to the special ed community. One of the things that you'll find about me is I'm an engineer and I like data. I like digging into data. I like digging into rules. I like digging into statistics, doing analysis, and finding opportunities for improvement. I think one of the things that we face in our school is not that we have bad teachers. I think most of the teachers I've interacted with, I really like. I think they do a good job. I think we have some system work to do and to give them the best opportunity to succeed. And I think that's what we need to do is our school really isn't that different from similar schools across the state. We need to find a way to become an outlier where our scores are improved and we can work with what we have.
Thank you. All right, first question. By the time you'll take office, it's highly likely a bond issue will have been approved by the school board and placed on that year's ballot. Do you favor a bond issue, and what will your actions be involving the bond issue and your opinion on it? So are you in favor of a bond issue, and if so, how will you act out your opinion? We'll start with Andy, since you started last fall.
No, it's all good. Yes, I will be in support. How much time do I have?
You got a minute.
A minute, okay, that's quick.
You ready? You said like 10 seconds.
Full disclosure, I'm on the school board now, and I'm a very big cheerleader for the bond. So I'm way biased, but there's been a lot of good work that's gone into it. I believe we're taking about half, or we're asking the community for about half the money we really need. And I think that's responsible in itself. We know people don't like that. They don't want us to spend money. I don't want to spend money because I have to pay all that stuff too, that you all have to pay. But I'm a big supporter of the bond. I think when you guys see it, see the work that's gone into it, and the plan that we have to fix the necessities, most people will be okay with what they see. And so I'm hopeful that we'll get that passed.
Thank you. Heidi.
I am also 100% on the bond issue. I think that it's necessary, needed, strategic thinking for the future of our kiddos and their success. I will do all the things go door to door, post on social media, write letters to the editor, do whatever that might take to talk about the bond, explain the bond, answer questions about the bond, meet with people to do more things about, to speak about the bond, and to really help people understand why it's important. I'll even go on tours with you through the buildings and explain what's happening so that you can see firsthand why we need it and why it's important for the success of our students going forward.
Thank you. Clint?
Yeah, I'm well in favor of the bond. I said early on, I like a bond issue that addresses educational issues and things that improve education in the classroom. If you haven't been to the high school in a while and you're on the fence, or if you're a no vote on it, please go visit the high school. I'll be honest with you, I don't know about the other schools. I do know the high school, though, is in absolutely terrible condition for its age. And if we want to have a good community and we want good education, we have to improve the classroom quality. Leave the technology and the curriculum and all that stuff out of it. Just being in an environment that feels good. Look at the room we're in tonight. It improves your morale and your atmosphere and all those things. And we have to do better at that. We've deferred maintenance so long in this district and in this community really as a whole. We can't do it any longer. So yes, and I would also say just please vote yes. And if you're a no vote, come talk to me tonight.
Thank you. Rachel?
So when the idea of the bond first came up to me, the first thing I thought was, I want to make sure that they're spending the money well. And so this led me to then attend the school board meetings, and good stewardship of public funds is a fundamental value of mine. And so I sat there in that meeting and line by line went through them and what they're going to spend it on. And I'm impressed with how they have decided to spend the money, and I'm in favor of the bond because our schools need it and our kids deserve adequate learning environments.
Thank you. Stephen?
If you want a 10-minute conversation of me approving a need for a bond, I was on the RSP committee. I actually spoke in front of the board advocating for a bond. The issue is this bond is tough. I would have preferred a tax neutral one. However, the needs are greater than what we've allotted for. It's tough in our community because demographically we have a poorer community than the average in Kansas, and we have an older community. It makes it tough, but we need these things. For instance, it's really not even deferred maintenance. It's just things are out of lifespan. I went back through the bills for the last 2 months. $60,000 in repairs for AC. Just in the last 2 months. They're at the end of life. There's so many other things that are just at the end of life. They just need to be replaced.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, there's no reason to be different. I too support the bond. I kind of chose that because I've been involved in bonds in the past, and I recognize working with schools and facilities over the many years that I've been in education, it comes to a point that things do wear out. And you hear about deferred maintenance, not the best terminology in the world, because the truth of the matter is the budgets are pretty strict on what they can do and how much money you have available. Yes, you can do some things to improve maintenance over the time, and I think that's always important. But at some point, about every 20 years, about every school district in the state of Kansas needs to have a bond to improve upon those things that have worn out. We have 15 years average, I think they say in Kansas, for air conditioning, HVAC, and things like that. And Stephen just talked about how expensive just HVAC was in just the last month or so. And it continues to rise on those costs. So I support it for those reasons.
Thank you. All right, next question, and we will start with Heidi. Newton's faced a nearly 20% decrease in enrollment in the last 6 years, and projections are for future drops. What steps are necessary for the district to take as the trend continues?
I think paying attention to changing demographics is important, and to understand what the needs of the community are and what is causing some of the trends to happen. We're seeing it, obviously, the demographic changes are impacting not only K through 12, but then those folks are not coming to college, so we're paying close attention to that at the collegiate level as well. I think the important thing is to think about how we right-size some of the things that we're doing and adapt and change with the changing size of the district. Reallocating resources makes sense to me. Taking a look strategically at what we're doing long-term, changing directions if we need to, and really assessing how we can attract more students to the district and how we can ensure that with economic growth, we're positioned well to attract the right students at the right time to the right.
Thank you. Clint?
Yeah, across Kansas has had declining population, and very few districts in the state have actually seen an increase in student population. We have some of the big ones in our area. We think of Andover, we think of Mays, Goddard, those larger school districts with a very large tax base and a lot of money that comes in. They can create world-class environments. They can have the best of the sports teams. There's something desirable about that. I think we're a long ways away from there. But if you have a sinking ship, you don't just bail water, you got to fix the hole too. And so I think for us, it's important to realize the why behind it. And I don't think the why. I really don't believe the why is something that the school board can fix. I think the why is much larger. I think it's community pride. I think it's the retention of people in our community, that people want to go somewhere else that's closer to a larger city. I've heard for the 7 years that I've been here and elected to the commission for 4 years that people want Newton to remain small. They want the small community. There's not a lot of small communities in the state that are growing right now.
Thank you. Rachel?
As an alumni of Mays High School, yes, we definitely are in a very different place in Newton than Mays. And I think a lot of that is how we support children and families. That is outside of the scope of the school board in many ways, not always, but we have to make it affordable for people to have kids here. And I think also we have to invest in ourselves. The staff, the teachers, the kids, we need to be nurturing and building the best environment possible so that we can continue to demonstrate the values of this community, so that we can continue to bring people here because it is such a nice place to live.
Thank you. Stephen?
The issue with population is nationwide. In fact, it's all the Western world. The reason we can't find teachers, the reason we can't find engineers, the reason we can't find doctors, the reason we can't find nurses is all the same. We're not reproducing. Now, I know that's hard for a school board member who's running for government to say 1.6 children per woman is not enough. You have to be at 2.1. There's about 60 million people missing from our country. The last 50 years, we encourage people to look for jobs, look for careers, and we forgot to tell them that part of the reason you do that is because you want to raise the next generation. We need to start encouraging that. The other thing is education. There is no replacement for quality education. If we become one of those outliers that I was talking about earlier, where we have quality education, high quality education, we stand out, people will come. There's no replacement for quality.
Thank you. Bob?
Really reiterating a lot of the things I think people have said. We have to really show off our community, I think, is a lot of it. But there were some things that were said here, such as it's not just the schools. The schools are an integral part of this community, but the community and the schools working together to bring people here to show what Newton has and what the community has is extremely important. It requires the work and cooperation of all the entities, governmental entities, private entities as well, in order to try and attract that population. I think it was mentioned that it's not just one thing, or it's not, we're in dire care in that situation, because we are close to Wichita. And if you look at communities that were mentioned, Goddard, Andover, and Mays, etc., when I moved to the Wichita area quite a few years ago, those were small communities, rural communities. So we have that opportunity to grow, I think.
Thank you. Andy?
I think most people hit the highlights here. And declining birth rate is real. We need to do things differently. We need to embrace the change that's here now. I think we're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, and we all know that doesn't work. And so how do we innovate? How do we embrace the new tools and the new way to deliver the curriculum? And we have great people in place that want to start talking about that, but we got to set some agendas and get it done, right? So there's a bigger picture. To become that outlier, to get competitive, we do have to do those things. What does that look like, right? What does that look like in this setting in a government entity? Because it's very different than the private sector, I'll tell you that right now. But it doesn't mean we can't get creative and get it done. And the other thing is culture and partnering with our other groups, our city and our county. How do we figure out how to be different and better? And then how do we cheerlead each other as we go through this journey, right? There's a lot of change right now. How we've done things in the past was amazing for a long time, but we need to change. And so I'm a big proponent of that, and I'm looking forward to piloting some cool stuff to make Newton different.
Thank you. Moving on to our next question. Newton has a high turnover rate amongst educators. What needs to be done to change the trend and keep quality educators within the district? Start with Clint here.
So there's a story that I've been told, and I think it's real, that teachers have come here to apply for a job because they were told by Mays or Goddard or those other larger districts, go to Newton and work for a year or two and then come back to us. They don't stay here because we don't pay enough. They can go down there and make significantly more. There's another story of a teacher that had been here for a long time, double-digit years by this point, and went to Valley Center and made significantly more to finish her career. And so, I mean, our teachers do not get paid enough. I had the privilege of working in the wood shop at the high school for just a year, and I left that experience with two things. Number one, teachers don't really get a whole summer off. I always thought they did, and I thought I wanted to become a teacher to have 3 months off. Just as soon as I thought I was done, it was like, oh, come back, you need to get ready for the next year. And then secondly, realize that teachers, you can't raise a family on a teacher's income. And so there's just not, I think we need to pay more.
Thank you, Rachel.
Teaching's about the hardest job you can do. You don't get a break, you work long nights. I've had numerous friends work as teachers, and none of them are teachers anymore. In fact, I went to school to become an English teacher and didn't make it very far before I saw that this was a great way to stay in poverty. We have to do better by our teachers, we have to invest in them, and we have to listen to them. Just as a social worker, part of what I would do going forward would be to intentionally spend time in the schools so that I can hear what's going on from the teachers, from the staff, so that we can actually address the problems that are driving people away from our schools.
Stephen?
Yeah, I think a lot of us realize that our teachers need to be paid more, and I want to find ways to do that, but it's going to be hard to compete with Mays and Andover in that matter. Where we can beat them is we can beat them in culture. We can have a system where teachers want to work here because they want to work here. We need to get our families involved. We need to get our community involved. We have institutions here. We have strong churches. We have strong nonprofits. We need to get them more involved so that we create a greater culture among the entire city to encourage people to stay. I think people want to work where they're welcome and other people are there to help them. That's what we need to work on.
Thank you. Bob?
I think putting teachers, the quality teachers, and retaining those teachers in front of a classroom is imperative, because they're the number one factor in how well our students do. So when you start looking at that, we have to, and it's a difficult challenge, because most people start thinking of, especially probably people coming fresh out of college, how much am I going to get paid for this job? And you have Mays and Andover and those that are paying more. So we have to attract, we have to look at the culture, we have to help support our teachers, and I think supporting the teachers is something that's just as imperative as how much pay they're going to get merit and get paid. So keeping them, giving them support, giving them opportunities for growth, all will help, I think, attract and retain teachers.
Thank you. Andy? Andy?
What?
Are you ready to answer the question?
What question?
Let me ask it again for you here. Newton has a high turnover rate amongst educators. What needs to be done to change the trend and keep quality educators within the district?
That's a hard one because as a board member, we talked about culture, right? And we talked about, you should talk about wanting to do the things you can as a board to not embarrass your school system. And we need to just be careful on how we act publicly as a school board because it matters, right? There's a ripple effect and that hurts culture. So how are we paying attention to those things that matter in the long run, right? Because you will have teachers or administrators that get scared to come here because of our culture, and then that makes it harder for them to attract teachers to be under their watch because of the actions of administrators, right? Or even from what our actions do on this board can trickle down and hurt the culture in our community, but quick. And we've seen that, and we need to clean that up, and we are doing that. So how we can attract them, pay is great, but that comes at a cost. And we've looked at those numbers, and we say we want to pay our teachers, but we don't want to make the hard decisions to bump up the things that we can bump up to make those decisions or that. So are we really willing to do that, or are we saying we want to do it, but then not taking the action to do it? So we just have to have those debates, we have to have those talks, we have to bring that information to the community and figure out what's best moving forward, but culture, I think, is number one.
Thank you. Heidi.
I could echo all the things that have been said. I think I would just add, I think a really important thing, and if you've been to other forums, Rachel said a thing a while back at one of our forums that's really stuck with me for a long time, and it really is about environment, the environment in which our teachers teach. We had students and teachers in environments this fall that had no AC. And they were expected to teach in that classroom space, in hot buildings, and expected their students, they were expected to perform and their students were expected to learn. Who wants to work in that kind of environment? And I think about that, and I think about environment is key. We have to do the things that improve the environment for teachers. We have to do the things that improve the ability of teachers to want to come to work. We have to do partnerships with other people that make them excited to come to work in Newton. And we have to build pipelines that make students excited to be in a pipeline to choose teaching as a profession.
Thank you. Right, we're going to move on to some audience questions. If budget cuts become necessary, let me rephrase this. If budget cuts become necessary, what would you prioritize to both preserve or reduce? So if budget cuts become necessary, what would you prioritize to preserve and what things would you look at cutting? Rachel.
So I'm also a small business owner. I run a small private practice where I do my psychotherapy. And so I am quite adept at finding ways to make ends meet. And for me, trimming the fat is a big part of keeping the budget on track. And then, prioritizing the things that make a space that space. A big part of how I've built my business is that this is kind of the anti-trauma room. This is the place where, there are green things growing, there are no holes in the wall, there's nice art. The things that build the culture and build the vibe. I would very much want to make sure that we keep the things that make Newton, Newton.
Thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, that's a real tough question. It's hard because I'm still going through all the bills and budget that I can find. There are things that you can push out another year, and I know that's hard to do. Nobody wants to hear that, but there are times when we can do that. But all that does is then it increase the need later on. There is really no good way to do that. The biggest thing is like we've said, we've got to attract more people to the district. And I think if we focus on quality and really put attention to that, we'll start drawing people back in. The other thing you can do is you can reach out to the community. Once again, we have a community that I think wants to help. You're going to have to reach out to them for help that they volunteer to help. That's where I think we can maybe find some assistance. I hate to say cuts because that ends up dividing the community. And that's something that I think we're trying to avoid right now.
Thank you.
Bob. I think I became a superintendent about the worst time to be a superintendent in Kansas, because they had a budget surplus, and then suddenly after the economic crisis of about 2008, 2009, we had a huge drop, and we continued to cut schools for several years after that. It took from the time when I first started to the time that they have put the money back into the schools to pay for teacher salaries and some of the other things, it took over 10 years of doing that. So the reality is there are no easy ones. You look for the things that are farthest away from the classroom as you can. You try to keep the teachers and the people that have the greatest impact on students as best you can. But it's difficult, and I've done it, but it's a really difficult process for sure. And it included cutting personnel.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's the hardest one, is cutting personnel. You know, what do you have to do to keep your people, right? And go people first and move out from there. But at the end of the day, in this kind of situation, you gotta look at people and staff. We're smaller, we gotta be smaller. Closing down buildings is something I didn't hear. That's a hard one. But you gotta look at that. You have to have the conversation. Doesn't mean you do it, but you have to play with all the ideas that come to your table. And one of the things I do know is we have a great team in place that would bring us options. And not all of them are pretty, but we would look to those options and we would see what the team thought was best. You ask questions, you dig in, you play with ideas, and at the end of the day, making cuts is not fun, and usually it's people and buildings, and that's not anything anybody ever wants to be a part of.
Thank you. Heidi?
I would echo a lot of things that Andy just said. I've been through this process many times in my professional career, and you try to do as much as you can to keep it as far away from student learning and student success as possible. Those cuts are hard to make, but you preserve as much as you can the student learning process and the student success process, because that's what you're fundamentally there to provide, is those learning opportunities and that success for students. I think, you really rely on the folks that are on the ground and can bring you options and ideas, and then you dig in and you ask the good questions and you think strategically about what you're doing, get input from others and the community, and make the best decision you can with the information that you have.
Thank you. Clint?
Yeah, I think when you go last on the questions, you could just say ditto, because, it goes from one end of the gamut to the other. But I was thinking about the school district compared to like the city, and the school has a very narrow scope of what it provides. It provides a classroom, and it provides, I think, activities that students have a chance to grow in themselves and find out things they like or dislike. I know my son, tried the ag program, and he was certain going into his freshman year he was going to be a farmer one day, and decided that the ag thing wasn't really for him, and so doesn't want to be involved in that anymore. So I think that what I wrote down was just things that don't affect the classroom, and to not cut those things or cut things that don't affect the classroom, but then to prioritize the things that do promote the classroom, because that's really what the scope of responsibility is for the school district. So I agree with everything that's said. That's kind of a ditto moment.
Okay, thank you. This one I got a number of different variations, so I'm going to combine these. What is your relationship with current Board of Education members, and how would you ensure effective teamwork on the Board of Education, even if your opinions differ? Start with Stephen.
Relationship, like, do I like them? Do I not like them?
Yeah, I know. There's one rule perfect for everyone to answer. How about just the last half of that question?
Okay, I will tell you this. I have had contentious arguments with people on the board. I think just about everyone at some point in time. That's okay. We need to disagree. Andy and I disagree on lots of things. We agree on a lot of things too. I see Melissa back there and Mallory here. I've disagreed with all of them, contentiously. I've agreed with them on a lot of things too. I think we need that. I don't dislike them. There are other board members I've disagreed with and I've agreed with. It's okay. Now, it gets heated because emotions run hot. And that's okay too, because we're all passionate about our students and what we do. That's okay. So ultimately, yes, there are times I'm gonna disagree, and there are times it's gonna look really heated because we're passionate and it makes a difference. But ultimately, I can work with any of them, and I'm looking forward to working with whoever is on the board. So.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, I mean, I could probably reiterate a lot of what Stephen just said in regard to being able to, I think, to work with people is key. When I was superintendent, I needed to work with people. As a principal, I needed to work with kids a lot. So I've worked with a variety of people, and I think that's important. You have to have professional respect, but you have to be able to voice your opinions and have reasons for those, and I think you need to give the other person credit, the other person the opportunity to speak their piece, and then I think you need to make decisions appropriately. And whatever the board decides as a whole, if we're going to be a good functioning board, you can say, I voted this way, which may be against what the majority is. However, I support the board's direction, whatever the vote might be.
Thank you. Andy?
That's almost a loaded question for me. We did disagree on the Walton thing and the Railer Way thing and then the Heston thing. I don't know about any of the other ones, but I don't think we had long discussions on that, maybe a couple emails. But, and I've had, unfortunately, because of that, there's some board members that we just don't talk, and that's not healthy. And I'm willing to talk, and I'm willing to discuss things, and I do that for a living. Matter of fact, I was on an Amazon plant today in Salina, Kansas with somebody that just wasn't getting along with me real well. And have you ever been in a situation like that when you got a project you have to finish and you have that contract? No matter what they tell you to your face, you have a team of people counting on you to get the job done. It's not about if you like me or not, it's about how are we gonna get this job done, right? And I do that all the time. I mean, I have a partner here today who will tell you, we have discussions. Sometimes it's a little tough, but that's where the good stuff comes from. And you've got to engage and continue to communicate, especially when things are hard. Because when you stop communicating, you start creating a narrative in your head that usually isn't true. So communication is key, open doors are key. Everybody who knows me knows I'm willing to have pretty much whatever discussion you're willing to have within reason, right? And be respectful through that process.
Heidi?
Sure. I think healthy dialogue is super important. I've been on 4 executive teams now, and there's always healthy dialogue because not everybody comes to the table in mind and body of the same mind and body, so it's super important. I think it's super healthy to have conversations and super healthy to disagree. But at the end of the day, I think Andy's exactly right. Whatever way you vote, you have a job to do and you need to get that job done. When you leave the room, our president always says to you, a little inside baseball at Bethel, our president always says, no matter what conversation we have in this room, we all leave the room and we're of one mind and one voice. And that's super important. So when we leave the boardroom, we're of one mind and one voice, because that's how successful leadership groups are and should work. So that's what you can expect from me. I'm really open. I know a lot of the board members. Our kids are friends. They play in the band together. Mallory, my daughter, and Mallory's son are really tight like this, and it's really fun. So I look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you. Clint?
Yeah, I'm not related to anybody on the board, but I don't really consider anybody. I didn't think I'm the only one that said that. So I wonder about the rest of you guys. No, but me, I'm not related to anybody. But I think I consider everybody a friend, and so I don't really have enemies in life. I don't want to have enemies in life, and so everybody is a friend of mine, and so I'm friends with everyone. No, but I'll say, Andy Ortiz is probably one of my best friends in life, and our relationship goes back way before I was ever in government. I can't remember for Andy for sure, but we meet for breakfast probably once a week or coffee, and share a lot of life. But I'll tell you what, with his permission, I would let anybody look at our text messages and see that him and I have disagreed on a lot of things, and but nobody would ever know that, because I think that as a team, as Heidi mentioned, right, when we're in the room together, unfortunately in government, so much of this plays out in the public. And so we have to be able to disagree, but disagree healthy. And I'll tell you what, in the United States, we don't know how to do that very well, but maybe we can be the example for that.
Thank you. Rachel?
I feel like this question was kind of written for me, because not only am I trained as a mediator, I used to teach mediation. And so a big part of conflict for me is that's really where the juicy bits are, and that's where the values and the things that are really important to us live. Most importantly, like, I think a big part of managing conflict is embodying healthy conflict resolution, you know, being able to regulate yourself, being able to kind of go to the balcony, see other people's points of view and learn and grow from them. In fact, I teach graduate students how to do therapy, and we were talking today about how so much of it is showing them, doing it with them, practicing it over and over again, and you know, I fully trust that the other members of the board have the ability to disagree healthily, and I look forward to the possibility of enhancing those skills within our school board.
Thank you. All right, we're going to ask another question here. This one showed up in a number of cards and on my list. The state continues to discuss using tax vouchers for private students in schools. Do you support using vouchers to fund private education? I think we would start with Bob.
We have in schools right now school choice. In terms of tax vouchers, I don't think, if you can really go back to the beginning of the United States, they felt like it was important to build the United States on education. To have a democracy, you have to have an educated public. They never did say, well, you have to go through public education. They never said you had to go through private education or through religious education. So it's a school choice is what it amounts to. Should taxpayer tax money be used for private other ways? In my opinion, no. That doesn't mean that they can't support it, but one of the main reasons is because they have to be, as public schools are, held to a standard that not all the other schools that are not public schools are held.
Thank you. Andy?
No, I wouldn't support that. I would support us using our money differently and doing creative things within our own system and being given the permission because of all the ways things have to come down the pipeline to us and what we're mandated to do. I wish we could get a little more creative in that way. But at the end of the day, I'm very much against that. I've read enough about it, and I've looked at other places that have tried that. And the thing I get scared of when we start doing stuff like that is we have a really big ship and it turns slow. And once you do stuff like that and you start seeing the repercussions, people try to hold on to decisions that they've made, and next thing you know, they get stubborn with it and they try to hide things, and so you don't start turning back till after about 6 years of making the mistake. Because egos and stuff get involved, right? And then when you start turning back, you've lost 12 years of education, because then you've got to get back to where you were before you can get back online. So I would not be in favor of something like that. I'm pro-public education. I do think we can do things differently. I think we're on the path to be creative to do that. But we got to protect public schools if we want good individuals out there that are going to be productive for our society.
Heidi?
I'm not a big fan of vouchers. A lot of research has been done in this area. A large share of voucher users are students from families who can already afford private school, so it's not new dollars in the system. Interestingly enough, Arizona did this in 2022. 75% of the first wave of applicants were students who had never attended private or public schools. So $7,000 every parent got, they were already paying. So the state had to transfer those $7,000 out of the state treasury to those parents who they didn't even already have those dollars. So they don't have the funds already. So earlier we talked with the city commissioners about funding one pot out of another pot. It's exactly the same thing. And the other piece of it that I find a little distressing is a lot of those schools are tax-free. They're not paying property taxes. So they're not already paying into the system, and then they're getting additional dollars from the system. So to me, it's a little bit unequitable. So
Thank you.
Not in favor.
Clint?
Yeah, so Andy, I disagree with you. Told you guys we can disagree. No, you know, it's a hard question for me because I had two kids that went to Newton Bible Christian School, and I had two kids that were in special education in the public school at the same time. And I know that no matter the amount of taxes we paid, it never would have been enough to ever pay back the education or the benefits that my two children received at the public schools in special education. At the same time, I was privately paying, a monthly tuition that was equivalent to some people's house payment for my kids to go to Newton Bible Christian School, and I would have liked to have seen a portion of that come back because we were paying taxes for those two that were not being utilized in the public school system. So I'm very back and forth on it. I'm completely open. I don't know that my mind's made up, but I also believe in the opportunity for people to be able to send their kids where they want to go to school, and if they're not utilizing a service or a system, it's difficult for me to be completely on board, not totally on board, but completely on board with the idea of it. So that's where I'm at on it.
Thank you. Rachel?
So as a social worker, the people that I prioritize are the underdogs. And school vouchers disproportionately harm the kids that are most at risk. Partially because all of this money, like others have said, is going to schools that people are already paying to attend. And those schools don't always get held to the same standards that public schools get held to. If I'm giving out state money, if I'm giving out my tax dollars, I want to know that the kids who are receiving this education are getting quality for it. And so unless they're willing to change some things about how they run private schools, I'm really not in favor of vouchers.
Thank you. Stephen?
About 20 years ago, I would have given a different answer, but no, I'm not in favor. Because with tax dollars comes government oversight. The reason that those private entities want to be private entities is because they don't want a government oversight. So if we're going to give them money, the government gets the oversight. It completely defeats the purpose of them being separate entities. They might as well just be a public school. So, no, I'm not in favor of it. Because if the issues that allow them to perform better or do things differently are the rules, well, then we should get relief from those rules as well. We can't compete at different rule sets. The objective is to have competition between private and public, but you can't compete when you're held to different standards. So, no, I'm not for it unless they end up looking exactly like public schools. Because with government dollars comes government oversight.
Thank you. Next question, reader question. What is your opinion on book bans? And I think we start with Andy.
Do we have a specific book that we banned?
I don't know. They just want to know what your opinion is on book bans.
It sounds like one of the talking points you see on the headlines to get you to click on something, and it's like a different product that didn't even have anything to do with what you clicked on. I can tell you that I don't think we've banned any books. If we have, cool. Show it to me, and we'll talk about why. I do think we need to be careful with what books are in what school buildings and what age groups, and then checks and balances with parents. I was actually part of a team in our district that has a process that we put in place probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe now, where they have to go through every book that comes into our school system goes through a big review. 5 people, I believe, have to check off on that. They see the team talks about it. They read through them. And so there's some accountability built into our system now. So if they find something that's in the system that's not appropriate, we have people to talk to about that. And then those books come through the board to get reviewed. So there's no banning. There may be some slowing up of some content just because of the crazy out in the marketplace and the things that people want to put in front of certain kids that I don't frankly agree with. But I think we do a good job at USD 373 in checking and balancing all that out.
Thank you. Heidi?
As a rule, I'm not a big fan of book banning, but I do think that there ought to be some structures and checks and balances in place. And I think what the district has in place right now is really effective, working well, has a lot of opportunity to speak into the process, and has some appropriate guardrails, what I think are effective and working well. So I would support that. But as a rule, I'm not a big fan of book banning.
Okay. Clint?
Yeah, I would agree with what both of them said. I think there's age-appropriate books, and I'll admit that my book category of reading is I do read a lot, but it's pretty narrow. So I don't know of any books that come off of mine that have been banned. I'm like, oh, that shouldn't have been, or there's ones there that should be. But yeah, I think there's age-appropriate reading, and I think that's where we have to be cautious. And I would even add to that maybe too and say what is forced reading. For regardless of age, I mean, there's things that I wouldn't want my kids to read that other parents might be okay with, and there's things that I do want my kids to read that other parents aren't okay with. And so I think there's a give and take on that. And I wouldn't want to force what I want my kids to read onto somebody else if they might want to. And so that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Rachel?
Broadly, I'm not in favor of book bans. In fact, I'm somebody that loves to read banned books and loves to read books that I disagree with. I think one of the foundations of a good education is learning how to interact with things we disagree with. So, to kind of echo my colleagues, we do need to make sure that these books are age appropriate for these kids, and we also need to be making sure that we're including things that encourage them to develop the skills to engage with things they don't always agree with.
Thank you. Stephen?
When we talk about book bans, we need to distinguish between a ban and curation. A ban I'm not for, but however, I am for making sure that books are appropriate. This is a warning for our online viewers while your kids here. We don't need to see books about sex or smutty magazines, as people would refer to them, in our schools. There's age appropriate things, and ultimately, what we need to do is we need to ask, what is the educational value of this book? I think that's one of the things that we've talked about with the process of screening books to put in our schools. There needs to be educational value. There's a lot of books out there that have almost no educational value, but they're entertaining. But there's also a lot of books out there that have risque topics, but they're extremely educational. We have to balance that, but we need to make sure that everything's age appropriate.
Thank you. Bob?
I'm not too in favor of book bans either, but as it's already said multiple times, age-appropriate material is very important. And Andy, I think, mentioned they have a process already in play here at the school district where they look at the books. And they don't choose just necessarily one book. So part of the idea of having books and different books to read is they're teaching such concepts as irony or different types of those types of concepts, things that are different in opinions, different views, and there are age-appropriate books and and in addition to the organization or the group that chooses those books and multiple books of those type of concepts, I think they also offer the opportunity for parents to kind of have some choice in that as well. So if you have a book that is on irony, but one parent doesn't like that, you usually have more than one book to choose from.
Thank you. Next question. Disciplinaries have regularly been brought up by parents and those transferring out of the district, particularly at the middle school levels. Do you view student behavior as an issue, and if so, what can the Board of Education do to improve it? Heidi. Yeah. Disciplinary issues regularly have been brought up by parents and those transferring out of the district, particularly at the middle school levels. Do you view student behavior as an issue, and if so, what can the Board of Education do to improve it? So what can the board do to improve student behavior?
I do think students are changing. I think students are changing fundamentally at all levels of education. And I think that it would behoove us to understand how that's happening, why that's happening, and what kinds of infrastructures or supports we can put in place to understand and support students who are going through those changes and where those changes have originated from and what we need to do to adapt our systems to do that. I think so. Discipline is a part of that, and I think we need to rely on our experts at the district level to construct appropriate disciplinary tracks and infrastructure to support that. And then at the board level, we need to be supportive of those infrastructures and support the district personnel in enforcing those policies as appropriate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard that from parents that I know. Nobody's come to me and said, oh my goodness, the kids are just heathens in schools. Kick all of them out or relieve them. And I don't, to be honest, I No, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. What was the first part of the question was kind of, do you believe that, or do you think that's the case? I would imagine there's some parents that leave because, maybe a kid got bullied or something, and I really don't know what the stats are on the bullying. I don't, of course, wouldn't support that or think that's okay, but as far as just like outright behavior issues, like there's this slew of kids in the school that are just completely disruptive all the time and making the environment completely miserable for everyone else. I don't think that's the case. I think that my experience with the discipline process in the district has been very fair and well managed. So I think if there is, they're doing a good job with it.
Thank you. Rachel?
So I come to this as somebody who also very much enjoys intense workplaces, and I used to work doing in-home individual and family therapy with juvenile offenders. And it was definitely an interesting job, got quite a few stories. But I see all behavior as communication. And when we have disciplinary issues, what's happening is that child is communicating to us that something is not okay. I think that it's important that in those situations we invest in the kid by bringing in the social workers, the psychologists, the people who can see more clearly what's going on and what the kid is trying to communicate, so that we can then resolve the issues, because we don't know, it might be impacting more than one kid in our school district.
Thank you. Stephen?
Honestly, we have to look at what is going on. It's easy for us to say at 100 feet that, yeah, there's disciplinary issues, but we need to actually look into what's going on. For instance, I was recently talking with the principal at Chisholm on an unrelated issue, but the science classes had kind of a rotating temporary teacher in the 8th grade, and they had some disciplinary, she mentioned that they had some disciplinary issues, but once they got a solid teacher in there that was permanent, the disciplinary issues went away. So you really have to look at what is the issue. That's an example of where it seems like there's an issue, but it's really just once things get established, then it corrects itself. But then there's all kinds of reasons that that kids act out, and it may not just be one thing. We actually need to look into each one of the instances and see what we can do to solve it.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
There obviously has to be order in schools, and there's policies and procedures that are in place for that. My opinion, after having taught a number of years as well, is most kids just need to be loved and cared for and know that they are cared about. And in a lot of ways, that really works. And I really didn't have to send too many kids to the office in my entire career. And I think the procedures and the teaching of teachers on how to deal with some of the more unique behaviors that they have is something that also has to be worked upon. So there are ways in helping us, having some consistent behavior, expectations, and showing that you really care for the kid. And a lot of that takes care of itself. I recently had a conversation with the local principal, the high school principal here. He said, we have really good kids. And I haven't been anywhere where we haven't had really good kids. It's just a matter of showing that we care.
Thank you. Andy?
That's an interesting question. I spent a lot of time, about 10 years of my life out at Youthville, and then about 3 years at Prairie View as a case manager, and I got to deal with the behavior kids. And a lot of times what I found in my journey is it starts in the home. I don't know how a school board can reach into a home and exercise a family's need to encourage their child to love on their kid, to make sure their kid's eating right, to make sure they're getting them enough sleep, to make sure they're not playing enough video games, to make sure they're not on social media too long. All of these things that start at the house. And if I'm trying to work on that from the school board perspective, my ego is way too big. I do know it's a problem. I do know we have issues just like every other school. And I hope that and pray that we have a team of people, and I know we do, that are doing their best they can to handle those situations as they come at us. But as a school board member, unless there's a policy involved, my job's not to be working on disciplinary issues.
Okay. Well, I think that we've actually went over time, so I apologize, time management, if you're looking at watches, we were 3 minutes over. So I think we'll move on to closing statements, and we'll do it the same way we did the City Commission. So we'll start at the end with Stephen, and then move left to right.
Well, it's been exciting. It's been actually one of the calmest election years I can remember. And that's probably a good thing. That means we're starting to unite more. The reason I got involved in the school board is I started noticing more and more in my personal life through work, and there's a lot of new younger employees that are struggling with things like critical thinking skills and with being able to communicate properly. It's getting worse and worse. I would like to. Nobody up here used AI to answer any questions, right? I think we can all establish that. That is a problem that is creeping into our schools. And we really have to turn away from that, because things like AI and things like our computers, they're tools. It takes very little time to learn that, but it takes decades of education to learn how to use the skills to be creative, or to have critical thinking, to have creative ideas. Those have to be developed over multiple years. And if we take the shortcut and let our students take the shortcut now, they won't develop those skills, and we're going to be in a lot of trouble as a society.
Thank you.
So just again, since I'm kind of new to the community, my name is Rachel McDaniel. And a big part of running for school board for me is that when I look at kids and when I look at schools, I see our future. And right now, I worry about our future, because the third most likely killer of a child right now is suicide. And our kids aren't okay. Part of why I'm here is because I want a better future for our little ones. And I want it to be well educated and well informed.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And before I forget to mention, because I did this last time we were at a forum, most of the candidates have signs in the back. So if you want to sign before you leave tonight, even a couple, I know Jason has some back there from the city, so there's signs in the back. Grab one if you want them, because all of us would love to see those disappear. I would appreciate your vote. I've served on the city commission for 4 years. I loved it. I often tell my wife that, should she outlive me, and at my funeral I want her to say that being the mayor of Newton was the best year of my life. It was during the sesquicentennial. And I hope that maybe serving on the school board, there's a year in there that would even be better than that. So I think our school district is great. I think there's a lot of great things that are happening, but I recognize there's a lot of challenges too in public education right now. And so many of those things are outside of our control. And so there's questions that are asked that kind of seem like hypotheticals, like what would you do in these situations? And we really don't know until we get there. And so I would just say that it's important to elect somebody or elect people that have trusted leadership, that have demonstrated that. And I hope that I've done that for the city of Newton on my time on city commission, and look forward to serving on the school board. Should I have your vote?
Thank you. Heidi.
It's been a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I think education is the great transformational experience of life. And I think without it, we are, what is it that I think Thomas Jefferson said, the key to civilized society is education, right? So my heart is there. My heart and soul are all about education, and I definitely am grateful to be in the field of education. I have often thought that I could do other things with my time and energy, but this is where you can see the transformation of people, and for me that's just life-giving. So I hope that you'll all go out and vote in November. No matter who you vote for, do vote, because it's very important to the future of our community and the future of our kids.
Thank you.
About 8 years before I actually was appointed to the school board, I had people approach me, asking me if I was interested in running. And I always said no. Never saw myself in doing what I'm doing now. I thought it would be more in a different place, doing something different than the school board, but I'm here, and I can tell you, only in this amazing country can a guy like me go from loading watermelon trucks at 11 years old to being able to run and operate my own companies and chasing my American dream. And public education did it for me. And coming to Newton, Kansas and giving back to all of our kids and our community and our culture here means a lot to me. And I'm so grateful for all the opportunities you all have given me. And I want to just lay it all on the field and do 4 more years and make a little crazy thing I have in my head and see if we can build this vision out for a better education system and a platform here in Newton that's different from everywhere else. I look forward to hopefully serving you guys. I ask for your vote, and I promise you that I'll leave it all on the field over these next 4 years. Please give me that opportunity, and I'll get to work.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you for the opportunity as well. You know, I've been in education for my entire professional career, and I love kids. I love working with kids, and I believe in kids, and I believe in the future that they can give us. And I know people sometimes are frustrated, and I remember a quote once said, you know, these teenagers who just don't know what they're going to amount to. And you know, that quote was, I believe, from Aristotle or Plato, talking about teenagers back then. So it's a matter of, and why I'm running for the board is because I have that desire to continue to learn, to continue to help kids, whatever way I could. I love teaching kids face to face. I continue to love teaching medical students face to face. But I also realize that I have the expertise and I have the desire to help kids in other ways as well. And I appreciate all the time that I've spent and all the help that people have given to kids throughout their lifetimes. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let's give them all a round of applause. Great. And thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate it. And hopefully this was informative and this helped you out. And if you have any other questions for them, I'm sure they're